You were listening to From Sobriety to Recovery with Jesse Mogul. Let's get to the show. Welcome back to From Sobriety to Recovery. I am your host, Jesse Mogul. I am in addiction recovery. Okay, so here we go. For those of you who are listening on an auditory medium, any of the streaming devices you've always been listening to me on, then this is going to appear like just any other episode. But for those of you who have been, for whatever reason, dying to see me do these things live on camera, then you can go over to YouTube and you can watch the very first time that this show has ever been broadcast on YouTube. Once, a long time ago, I did one of these on Instagram and I did it live, and I just set it up in my office I had back in Santa Clarita and then just paced back and forth. And now I've got it over here and I've set up these lights, and I think it's still too bright on my forehead, and there's still going to be issues with that. I no clue how I'm going to make sure this always looks good every single time I do it, but I know that there has been some level of desire, of draw towards my viewers and listeners. And yes, a lot of it really has just come from the tribe. So, those of you in the tribe who have been chomping at the bit to see a YouTube version of this, congratulations, it's happening. So, let's get into it. Episode 300. I apologize. I missed last week. It was because of this. I not being able to find time to shoot it YouTube style. I went to my 30-year high school reunion, which was fantastic, if not interesting. The emotions that I had, it was very, very different, because if I'm going to be completely vulnerable, there was definitely a part of me that wanted to see how much the life might have sucked out of some of the people were not as friendly to me in my youth as I would have preferred, then, and certainly have no nefarious desires towards against their lives now. But there was definitely a part of me that was, like, I hope that person got a little bit of what was coming to them because of their youth. And I hate to admit that. I do. It's not something that I'm proud of. And at the same time, it was also a lot more illuminating to see how many of the people that I just felt so positively toward and wanted to hear what was going on in their lives and the little nuances and life changes and what they were able to experience and to achieve. Because I skipped the 10-year one because I was still very deep into my addiction and just thought I hadn't accomplished much with my life, even though that was probably the one that was the most fun as far as everybody being in their 20s and still drinking. I went to the one at 38, and that was cool. I was still very egotistical and drinking back then, so I don't really know how much I deeply connected with anyone then as compared with now that I was experiencing this whole thing through sober vision and just the humbleness, the humility, the gratitude, the integrity that comes from being in sobriety and recovery for over 7.5 years. So it was very interesting. Also, what was interesting was how much I just did not honestly remember much of any of the interactions I had with these people in high school. They would talk about things or mention stuff, or I would see them and, recognize their face because everybody looks relatively similar to how they looked back then. But for the most part, I would not necessarily remember any particular moment. There was a few people I specifically found and told them about memories that were very strong within me still. But otherwise, there would be times I'd get into a conversation and I had no idea how well I knew this person 30 years ago. If we were cool, if we weren't cool, I have no recollection of it at all. And whether that's because of 20 years plus of addiction lifestyle, or just the fact that I've lived in like 15 cities in 6 different countries and I've just had so many different stages of my life. I don't know, but I just know that it was absolutely something I'm really glad I went to. We're going to do another one at 35 years. I like the opportunity to see how these people grow and progress in their lives. I want nothing for them but positivity now. Any of that negative energy I took into it quickly was eliminated by just this desire to know that everybody is, doing the best they can with their lives and living one, hopefully, of some level of joy and accomplishment, building a family if that's what they want, or having a successful career. So for all of that emotions I went into it with, when I walked away, just blessed that I got to go to high school in a tiny little town where, yeah, only 70 people out of 400 plus showed up for this, and maybe more will show up later, maybe less. I don't know how these things will progress. I know because I'm best friends with the person who coordinates these and puts them on that I will be going to them until we stop doing them, mainly because I don't want to feel her wrath if I don't arrive. And two, there is that desire and curiosity to be able to experience, even for a glimmer of a moment, into the lives of other people who, when we were really getting to know one another, were in the, the hormonal puberty stage. I almost said prepubescent, but we were definitely in puberty stage by junior, senior year of high school. It's cool to see how 30 years has developed all of them. So blessed be, go Bulldogs, and not to mention my best friend up there. Her son is the varsity backup quarterback and the JV starting quarterback, and between the two, varsity and junior varsity, I think we won like 82-6 or something ridiculous like that. And her son threw like 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns. It was pretty remarkable to be able to watch. And, he's only like a sophomore. So I just think about how much life was abundant, and it's like the whole world expands in front of you when you're that age. And, now you get older, and obviously 30 years of life experiences, some have lifted me up and some have beaten me down. And it's always a really cool experience to be able to step back into that youthful generation and just through their eyes see all of the cool stuff that they're able to do. And social media and cell phones be damned for how much that's changed their experience of this time in their life. The children that I go up there to see because of this best friend, they're doing extremely well. And I would have to say that, her husband is also a best friend, but I went to college with her specifically, and really formed a strong bond with her. And then now back with the family over all these years, it's really just a testament to the amount of effort that they've put in to the children, and that the children were making good decisions. Because like we were going to discuss in this episode, you can put in all the positive values and you can put in a ton of effort into your children, and it doesn't mean that they're necessarily not going to start making decisions based off of peer pressure or social media pressures that allows condemns their life to go sideways. So amazing experience. Really glad I went. That's enough of that today. And, in a cool way, I almost segued right into this when we talk about the experiences that we have over the course of years and being able to take an opportunity to evaluate them. And I thought for the first episode that's on YouTube, but the 300th episode that's on Spotify and iTunes and Pandora and all Apple Music and everywhere else that you stream music and your favorite podcast. I'm everywhere, people. And now I can officially say I'm on YouTube, for better or for worse. These lights. Look at this shine. The 45-minute pilot I shot literally like 5 or 10 minutes ago. I don't think I had this shine. I changed nothing. Nothing at all changed with my settings. Why does it look different now? I didn't do anything, but yet it looks different. And I don't understand why. Why? Okay, so let's get into the meat of this episode. 7 things I learned in 7 years of sobriety and 300 episodes. And a lot of it is inspired by the podcast titles, because I thought, what a great opportunity to be able to go back over with the new viewers of the show, because this will be the first time that I've ever done an episode on YouTube, to talk about some of the episodes. I figured out a really cool way of being able to input a ton of information about the podcast and the episodes. I was finally able to, interestingly enough, I took Pandora and I'm able to copy and paste like the playlist of Pandora over into ChatGPT. And by doing this, I was able to pull out the titles, the episode numbers, and basically the descriptions that I wrote about these episodes back, that's posted on Pandora and Spotify and all that jazz, and drop it into GPT and do this. I've already done it with 100 episodes. And I was able to catalog every single episode title throughout the process of doing this, which I already had about 230 of them cataloged. So I had to go back in and get the other 70. But now I have a master list of every single title, and I had GPT break it down into categories. So the ones that are about communication or emotions. So it's going to be substantially easier moving forward for me to call upon old episodes that will then be able to elicit an opportunity for you to go back into the archives. For you YouTube listeners, if you're into podcasts, you certainly you can go back. Somehow Podbean has been posting some of these things into YouTube, and I don't know how to organize those into a list, and that that might take some time. I don't really know what I'll end up being able to do, if I'll ever be able to get all of the old episodes up onto YouTube, even if it's just with a still picture or something in front. I don't even know if I've got time to bother with that. So it might just be moving forward. You get to see these videos, and if you care enough, you can go back and listen to them auditorily on any of your favorite streaming apps. So let's get into this, because I feel like I've already rattled on for about 10 minutes, and anybody new to this is probably going to be like, dude, is this guy ever going to get to the meat of the podcast? And I do get to some seriously delicious meat in these things, or vegetables if you're into that thing. But I also do tend to get a little long winded. And most of the things I say are off the top of my head. Just a amazing, I put information in and then I say it back out. And in most of these things I've put into my own life and I'm still working on. And we're going to discuss that in the first one. Progress is greater than perfection. So we like to say on the show that perfection doesn't exist. It's all about progress, progress over perfection. And whether it's episode 251, breathe deep and stretch yourself slowly, or 268, are you interested in or committed to your sobriety or recovery? It's really imperative that we understand that we're looking for progress over perfection. Perfection is what somebody does when they get anxious or stressed out about the end result, not meeting up to some level of expectations for themselves or potentially people who are going to be receiving the output of their time and effort. You can sit there and tinker with an essay, tinker with a project, tinker with mowing your lawn all day long. And at some point, I've literally found that if I keep tinkering, I actually it gets really good. And I'm like, oh, what if I just tinker with this thing? And then somehow it goes backwards and it gets worse. Honestly, there's got to be a point in time where you're like, okay, well, this is as good as I desire it to be today. And, episode 10 of the YouTube show is going to be very different. I'll probably have the lighting figured out, the microphones, the whole system figured out way more than I do now. And it really reminds me of my first 4 months in my master's degree. So for those of you who aren't linear listeners or who are just, stepping in for a tidbit of a bite of this on YouTube, I'm getting my master's with a triple emphasis in psychology at Grand Canyon University. And those first 4 months learning how to write essays was extremely difficult. I hadn't written one in a long time. I was utilizing the American Psychology Association's format. It was a lot. And I was spending 20, 30 hours writing a 1,500 word essay. Now I can knock that out in 4 hours and still get the A. But I had to learn a system and it took a lot. And there was get to a point where I was like, I can't keep staring at this. It is whatever it is. Get the feedback, be happy with the way that I've done it today, care as much as I possibly can about it. See, the microphone just wants to trail away. Come on back, microphone. Care about the outcome. And also realize that staring at that screen for another 6 hours isn't necessarily going to make it a whole lot better. So progress over perfection. And that's what we talk about with our sobriety. We're not looking for that perfect day. We can certainly have those moments that are like, yes, I freaking figured it out. But it's about showing up every single day, and whether that's to meetings, whether that's to your mentor, whether that's to your sponsor, your life coach, your recovery coach, whatever that looks like for you. I have certainly learned that striving for progress is about that one small step forward every single day. It's about that constant repetition. There are going to be the tough days. There are going to be the days where you're going to use language patterns that even I try to fight against, but I still use. I still say, today was a tough day. Today was a crap day. Today was a insert profanity laced word day. Oh, for those of you who are often listening on the podcast, I know I use profanity rather frequently over there just to accentuate a point. I'm going to be again shifting away from that because we're on YouTube now. And one of my listeners told me that it's really tough for them to listen to the show with their 12-year-old in the room, because I do drop S and F bombs occasionally, more often than I'd prefer or think are necessary on the old podcast. So we are going to try to steer away ourselves from that, but they're still going to come out from time to time. But in this opportunity, rather than saying, crap day or tough day, it could be one of those other words. It's just important to realize that chasing perfection is a fool's errand, and it's better to take that step forward, submit the assignment, take the feedback, learn. And there's something that the brain does with completion versus continuing to tinker with something. And I want you to see sobriety and recovery as that forever progression, not a opportunity to try to ascend to perfection. I've watched perfection really cause a lot of people to failure to launch, and whether that's with their own YouTube show or podcast or coaching career or just in their own everyday life. If you sit there and think that you don't know how to weed eat the best and everybody in the neighborhood's better at it than you, and so you just don't weed eat, then your yard just ends up looking like crap all the time, versus go out there and weed eat for an entire season and tell me you're not better by the end of that season. And that goes into number two. Your mindset shapes your reality. Is your mindset growth or fixed? Do you believe that with a healthy mindset and some understanding and strategy, you're able to achieve success? And number 99 is from one of my mentors. He taught me a long time ago that mindset plus understanding plus strategy equals success. So if you have a growth mindset, if you have an optimistic mindset, you understand what the issue is at its heart, at its core, and all the variables that can come into play with that issue or problem, if that's how you choose. But I'm more about framing things as solution opportunities than necessarily problems. But again, that's coming up. Don't worry, we're going to get to that number on the list. A lot of it comes down to understanding that if you can understand the variables and you have a proper mindset around it, that you can grow, that you can get better at something, and you build up a strategy, which is just it could be a step-by-step process or just the very next step you need to take that can take you towards success. And for a lot of us, we frame success as this euphoria that we'll be able to achieve, this amazing life where, we're drinking, eating filet mignon 7 times a day and our bathtubs filled with Perrier, when in reality, success often is not very exciting. And it could be something as simple as not screaming at your kids when you find their book bag in the middle of the hallway. But a month ago, it would turn into this huge tirade that ruined the energy for the rest of the night and destroyed dinner. You may not even realize that something like that is having a profound impact on your family, let alone your own energy. And then one day you stop doing it, and a month or two later, everybody just seems to be more content, at peace, and less anxious in your house. And it was something as simple as realizing that, helping your kids understand why the backpack in the middle of the floor upsets you so much, or realizing that by picking it up and putting it on the hook right there, or by putting a hook by the front door, you alleviate an argument that has potentially been eating at your family for quite some time. That's what we talk about with mindset. What is the strategy? What is success? And sometimes success is extremely small and there's not confetti, but it's still a success. And we need to celebrate those little moments. Makes me think of 213, which is growth and fixed mindset. Where is it showing up in your language and in your beliefs, and ultimately affecting your addiction, your sobriety, and your recovery? And so we really tap into mindset a lot on the podcast, because I believe that it all starts with mindset. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be impeccable with your growth mindset on a day in, day out basis. But it's that when you catch yourself using a universal quantifier, always, everyone, never, everything, that you rewind a little bit and you say, okay, well, where is it not always, never, everyone, everything, no one, nobody? Where are there different opportunities for me to now have self-awareness around where that statement is no longer correct? One of the biggest takeaways I have from my recovery journey is how profound reading Mindset by Carol Dweck changed me at the beginning of this whole journey, and how it really allowed me to adapt into a more gratitude filled, humble, integrity driven kind of life, where I've certainly made a lot of big mistakes in my sobriety and recovery, but I seek to take them as lessons, as feedback opportunities. And we're going to get into that feedback opportunity here in a moment. So as you begin to shift your mindset from one that might be of fear and scarcity and hopelessness into one of possibility and growth and being able to overcome obstacles, having that growth mindset and realizing how important it is to just experience your life in that way is going to pay off valuably, dividends that you just can't possibly begin to understand until you experience them. Number 3, I wish I had like a graphics person. You ever remember those like video countdowns on VH1 where like number 3, and it would show the cue balls, and it would show like somebody moving an abacus with the number 3. It'd just be really cool if I had graphics. Anybody want to do that for free? Because I don't have a budget for it. Number 3, emotional resiliency is a superpower. From episodes number 31, coping with shame, anxiety, and other negative emotions, to episode 276, early sobriety anxiety, anger, and automatic negative thoughts. Emotional resiliency is one of those attributes that I remember one of my peers in the neurolinguistic programming world. She did her TED talk on the quotients, the IQ. There's intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, social quotient, and adversity quotient. And adversity quotient is that ability to have adversity show up in your life and be able to be resilient through the emotional ebbs and flows that will occur when those things are eliciting a feeling inside of you, and then being able to actively pursue a way out of that emotional surge. And when it comes to sobriety and recovery, if there's ever been something that we will notice pretty soon on in the sobriety stage, is how all of a sudden that muting of our emotions that we become so accustomed to is no longer there. So then we start to realize that it's like a tidal wave, like a tsunami. Sometimes it becomes so much, it can feel overwhelming. But over the years, I've certainly learned that this emotional resiliency that I seek is what helps me ride these waves. And instead of it being me on the seashore waiting for this tsunami to just pummel me and then drag me out into the sea, I actually can swim out there and ride that wave and be a part of it at its height, and realizing that it will dissipate. It will crash upon the shoreline. The water will return to forth which it came. And I can understand that emotions are extremely fleeting, feelings are fleeting, thoughts are fleeting. We have 50,000 thoughts a day. Some studies have shown it being more, some studies show it being less. The number is really inconsequential when I go to use it in this metaphor, as much as that if we have, or is it analogy? Not important. 50,000, and there's always going to be a thought and a feeling and an emotion. They're going to come together. Oftentimes we feel the emotion so strongly, we don't realize that a thought preceded it. But when we have a thought, there's a feeling that comes after it. So if we have 50,000 thoughts a day, that means we're having 50,000 emotions a day. And they might be a lot of the same emotion. And studies, again, have shown that 90% of our thoughts are just recycled from the day before. So now you're looking at 45,000 thoughts and feelings that you just keep ruminating on and spiraling on day in and day out. So that emotional resiliency that we look for is really just to come to the understanding that these feelings, they're fleeting, and we're latching on to the negative ones instead of latching on to the positive ones. And it's a process to learn how to release the feelings of shame and anger and jealousy and anxiety, and instead resorting to the more positive ones of hope and esteem and confidence. And old habits, the saying is old habits die hard. It's just that they become so entrenched that a habit that we think, oh, well, I like to eat sugar at midnight. So if I just eat a full dinner, I won't want sugar at midnight. That might be one of the processes that gets you to no sugar at midnight, but it may not be as beneficial as another 20 things that you could try. So we want to enjoy a life of constant experimentation and realizing that there is no perfection, that there's progress. And that's what we're really seeking here. Number 4, the opposite of addiction is connection. Whether it's episode 264, the opposite of addiction is connection. Literally, I name my episodes that on the nose. Or 246, support. The opposite of addiction is connection. I will go back to the same topic multiple times. Isolation is where addiction likes to swim. So in recovery, we can learn that with connection, whether it's going to meetings, having a sponsor, a recovery coach, whether it's having somebody in your family. I think I talked about this in the YouTube pilot. Brene Brown talks about that really what the way through our pain and our suffering is through our vulnerability and talking about it with people. And so whether you find support groups or trusted friends or a recovery tribe, like I created the Wise Mind Empowerment and Recovery Tribe. We, have a thing on the phones on a app called Slack. And there's a small fee associated with it just to maintain the software and the time that it takes to cultivate all of that. And people go in there, and there's like 20 different rooms, and some will be about emotions. A room will be about venting. We have another room on sports and another one on music, but we provide a place where we all are like-minded in that we have been, listening to the content from this show, and that we're seeking a way out of the suffering and pain through actionable steps and work on ourselves on a regular basis. And so I created the tribe because I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if my listeners had a place that they could all come and talk? And it's really interesting to hear them have conversations with each other on this app and watch them and see them utilizing a lot of the terms that I bring to the show, and then discussing how they've helped them in their actionable lives, out there in the real world. So what we're looking to do is build meaningful connections, and that's where you're going to find that thrival over survival, is by being around other people who've gone through it. Not necessarily because they've done it, you can do it. I hate that saying. If I've done it, you can too. That minimizes other people's pain, suffering, and trauma. But certainly, if I've done it, that means that it's possible, and you can model that behavior, and then you can start to acclimate that behavior to something that more is conducive to your lifestyle and your wants, needs, and desires. Because I walk 10,000 steps a day doesn't necessarily mean that you need to walk 10,000 steps a day, but certainly it helped me release 70 pounds once. And it probably would do something similar for you if you incorporated it and made it a goal every single day for a year to do. It's called modeling, and we're not looking to it is in a way. It's like, what did you do? Cool. I'm gonna go model that behavior, and then it's gonna start to be stylized to my own needs. But you don't get these opportunities to invigorate other people's perspectives and experiences into your life if you don't seek out ways of connecting. It's about leaning on others whenever you need some assistance, having them lean on you when they need assistance, and realizing that for a lot of us, somebody came back into the fire with buckets of water to pull us out, and we can go back in and we can do the same for them. Self-talk can make or break you. Number 5, automatic negative thoughts. How do we talk to ourselves? Episode 74, your self-talk is creating everything in your life, or episode 263, power words and empowerment statements. That one I think was right at the beginning or end of a year, where I specifically get you to come up with power words and power statements that become your mantras, so that when the negative thoughts and the negative self-talk starts, then you can say something positive back to yourself. Lapsing and relapsing. There is a difference between the two. Lapsing is more about dipping your toe back in. If you've been sober for 3 months and you have beers for 3 days in a row, and then you get back on the horse, that's more of a lapse than a relapse, which is just diving right back into the muck and the mire and deciding that that's where you're going to stay for a few more months. There is, at least how I frame it on the show, a difference between lapse and relapse, and whether the internet wants to agree or not doesn't really matter to me. It's, to me, a really powerful way to have people not feel so defeated when they go off and they slip up for a few days, and then they're like, oh, I just keep relapsing. Well, it's relapse is, if you go and Google relapse, it's definitely about going ham and going all back in, versus a lapse, which is like if you said no sugar for 30 days and then you have a cookie, you didn't go back to mainline and Oreos like you used to, but you did have a cookie or two. And there needs to be a different way of us categorizing lapsing and relapsing in our brains, so that we can talk to ourselves differently about it. Not to lie to ourselves, but just to be able to reframe where we're at and what it means to step up for ourselves. And this goes back to that self-talk. It's all about knowing that what you repeat to yourself time and time again is going to be what you begin to believe about yourself. You certainly have gained experience doing it with other people. If you consistently badmouth somebody, even if it's just inside your own head, your interactions with them are going to be drastically different than if you just step into empathy and realize that we're all humans living a human life full of fallibility. So self-talk can make or break you. And I cannot make you realize this, but I can certainly utilize words in this show that will fire you up to begin to experience your life with a more growth mindset, utilizing powerful words, and understanding how, just that little drip, drip, drip of water on the same rock over the course of years can split that rock, just like rushing water through the Grand Canyon once created the depths of that canyon. I know the Colorado River used to be a lot bigger back in the day. You do something time and time again, and it's going to carve out a channel. You don't snap your fingers and fill that channel in with positive thoughts. It's a day in and day out excursion into the wild to find out why you say negative things to yourself, and then discounting them by pointing out other times in your life where they weren't true. That's extremely powerful, and something I can't stress enough for you to do is don't find it goofy. What's goofy is whenever you're saying mean things to yourself, and then you keep saying mean things to yourself. Like, that's the part. People are like, oh, positive affirmations are stupid. Well, you've been using negative ones for long enough now. So positive affirmations are stupid, but negative ones are A-okay. Negative self-talk will drag you down. It will be the triggering mechanism for many of us to go back to that mindset that we are only worthy of addiction and we're not possible to do anything else. And while positive, empowering self talk creates that foundation for growth, it healing and forward momentum, it's really a reprogramming of your own mind. And it is a conscious decision to say powerful, positive things to yourself. More than likely, the negative things are what's unconscious, and it just, you don't put something up in the cabinet the correct way, and then you see it later on, and you're like, there you go again. Pay attention. You're such a dummy. You're not a dummy, and there's a million things going on in her mind. It's okay that we make little mistakes. We learn from them. We seek progress over perfection. Oh, look at that. A callback to number one. Number 6, setbacks are just setups for comebacks. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. What shout out to LL Cool J. This goes down to there is no failure. There's only feedback. Whether it's inspired by episode 274, The Price is Goodbye, Things to Stop Doing in Your Addiction Recovery, or number 229, CT FAR, How Your Thoughts and Feelings Hijack Your Actions. Shout out to Brooke Castillo, the host of the Life Coaching School, who taught me CT FAR a long time ago. Circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. I was a member of her tribe for about a year. I learned a great deal of stuff. Still listen to her podcast. Huge fan of what Brooke Castillo does over there. Really catchy name. I wish I'd have come up with that one. The Life Coaching School, just such an easy thing to find and search. And one of the more powerful things that she taught me right out of the gate was circumstances create your thoughts, which create your feelings, which then bring about your actions and then your results. CTFAR is the acronym I came up with on the podcast so that I wouldn't have to say circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results every time I referenced it. And you can go listen to me discuss that one on episode 229. Relapses, mistakes, setbacks, they're a part of the journey. They're a part of the adventure. I've learned that they aren't the end. They are oftentimes the beginning. There's a song, every new beginning is some other beginning's end. Little off key. Every new beginning is some other beginning's end. Ooh, ooh. I'm really glad I can't see myself on camera right now. Every new beginning is some other beginning's end, and an opportunity to give yourself an opportunity to evaluate the feedback and then go out and do something different, which would possibly give you a different result, might give you the same result, but it's not a failure. Is it awesome that Michael Phelps got 7 gold medals? Yes. If he only got 6, would we be like, but that one he got a silver? Whole Olympics was a failure. We're looking for long term here. It reminds me of Simone Biles in Tokyo, not choosing not to compete because she was having some mental wellness issues, and then she goes out and kicks butt in Paris. And will people, if they choose to, frame it as, wow, look at what she went through in Tokyo to come back and dominate the way that she did in Paris was phenomenal. And other people still won golds in competitions that she was in. But she really got to just show that even the most elitist, she's not an elitist, but even the most elite athletes and people and performers and people, just humans on this planet, can have mental health issues. And it's amazing that for at least I hope a lot of society saw that as an opportunity for us to realize that, there are no heroes and there were no epic warriors, that we're all human and we all have mental health issues from time to time. And when those who wanted to paint her as somebody who failed her country or gave up on herself, those are the ones who are just, I choose to ignore those people. They're the vitriol and the poison of society, instead of seeing it as, wow, isn't that amazing that somebody is willing to admit that in that moment they just did not have it in them to push themselves in that way, and instead they chose to do it differently, and yet it was able to come back and reach that mountaintop 4 years later. That's interesting analogy in that for athletes it can often be, okay, there's the next game, there's the next opportunity to score some points. Heck, in some cases it is literally the next shot that's coming down the way. For a lot of us in our life, It's not like there is a predetermined beginning to the next opportunity to succeed. For a lot of us, it might be just the casual interactions in our family, and whether we meet somebody with a hug and a kiss, or whether we meet somebody with disdain and side eye. It may not necessarily always be obvious to you when you have an opportunity to show to yourself, first and foremost, that you've had some growth when it comes to your emotional management, when it comes to your social interactions, when it comes to the way that you decide how your circumstances will affect your thoughts rather than letting it become so unconscious. It's awesome that there are times in our life. It could be when you go to give a presentation at work and somebody disagrees with something that you said, and instead of immediately getting thrown off kilter or snapping back at them, you say, "Oh, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. We'll explore that a little bit later once I'm done doing my presentation." That might be an obvious growth moment in your life that you can definitely call attention toward because it is a very distinct event that's happening. Oftentimes, you may not realize that for once you didn't flip off the person who cut you off because you're not so full of anger because you release the alcohol and the drugs, and now you wake up more balanced and more heart centered. You may not even realize that you don't flip people off anymore. It just might be something that you just stopped doing. So that's where we're looking for these setups as comebacks, as these thoughts and feelings and actions and results, and realizing that it was cool as it would be if we knew every single time that we were showing progress. More than likely, your brain's going to alert you to the times where it thinks you failed, where it thinks that you fell down, and it's not going to alert you to the awesome little victories you're having throughout your day. It's more than likely going to call attention to the times where you don't live up to your own morals, ethics, values, opinions, beliefs, standards of habits, and principles, because that's the automatic negative thought mechanism in our head. That's that 20, 30, 40,000 years of ingrained human behavior that says that if we make a mistake, if we make an error, the saber-toothed cat eats us up. And then the roaches get to the rest of us, where we don't necessarily live in a life or death world anymore like we used to. But our brains, again, 30,000 years of being hardwired, it's genetic at this point to seek out the negative rather than the positive. So your mind's going to show you the negative very willingly, and you have to choose to not let that willy-nilly revolving door of negativity and failure to pump into your brain. You get to choose now to see these little setbacks as opportunities for comebacks, as feedback opportunities, and then really attune your unconscious mind. Literally say the sentence, "Unconscious mind, I task you to recognize and bring to my attention the positive things that I do today that are because I got sober." Something like that. I literally will teach my clients to use this sentence. "Unconscious mind, I task you to," and then give it a directive, because it's sitting there just looking out the window of life, trying to figure out what to do with the 2.3 million bits of data flying at it every second. And it's over there shuffling things into their respective file folders. But the unconscious mind can handle a lot of information. So might as well give it a directive, rather than just letting it sort of just drive you around, because we all know what happens when Toonces gets behind the wheel. And if you don't know who Toonces the driving cat is, I know I referenced him on the YouTube pilot. Go on YouTube. You're here, but after me. Don't do it while you're watching me. Hey, hey. But later, type in Toonces the Driving Cat SNL for Saturday Night Live. It is hilarious. This cat just drives people over a cliff time and time again, and they keep getting back in the car with him, which is a lot like what you did with your addiction. "Oh, this time will be different. Toonces won't drive us over the cliff." Does it every single time, which was the same thing addiction was doing to us, which is why I got into neurolinguistic programming and understanding psychology of the mind and the emotions and all that stuff, because I wanted to know why I kept Toonsing. We're going to call it Toonsing. Toonces, the driving cat, the cat that can drive a car. He drives around all over the town. Toonces, the driving cat. And he would just drive people off the cliff. Well, we often do that in our own lives. We keep doing the same behavior, expecting that we're going to somehow go around the corner instead of driving over the guardrail. And then time and time again, we see the car but it's just a setback. It's not failure, because It's all an illusion, and we just get to be right back in the car, and this time we can take the curve at a very nice, safe speed, and we can continue moving forward on our lives because we experience things as feedback opportunities, and we realize that just because you fall, it doesn't mean that you have to stay down, right? You get punched in the mouth by life because you had a plan, and Mike Tyson would attest to this. It's what you do after life punches you in the mouth that really shows that resiliency, and that's what we talk so much about in our sobriety and recovery is having that resiliency towards those ebbs and flows of life. Number 7, sobriety is just the beginning. Look, sobriety was you quitting. Congratulations if you are in this world. You stopped using. Awesome. If you're still contemplating whether you are an addict or not and still trying to figure that whole thing out, blessed be, keep listening to the show and see what alights in you around your behaviors. And if you are ready to step into that world, by all means, there is plenty of room on this side of the fence. We are more than happy to welcome you. In fact, we never reach capacity. So anytime you want to come over here to the sobriety and recovery world, we are glad to have you. But it's just the beginning. Sobriety is when you stop using the addictive substances and stop doing the process addictions that have been destroying your life. It's just the beginning. There's so many more steps ahead. And like I said before, every new beginning is some other beginning's end. This new beginning of sobriety is the end of your active addiction. But there's going to be so many different traits, so many different things about your life that are still going to be relatively controlled by your old addictive self. And I was talking to my therapist last Monday, and one of the things it got really emotional for me. And one of the things that came out of that was that we spend so much of our lives in a survival mode that when we get to sobriety and recovery, especially as we start to stack on some days and weeks and months and years, that there's still a part of our brain that wants to operate in that survival mode, but we're not in survival mode. We're in thrival mode. And we're trying to use the same skills that we used in survival mode to help us in thrival mode. And while I am a huge proponent for not throwing away the backpack of skills that you've developed throughout all those years of active using, I'm much more into repurposing those skills towards something more beneficial to you. Like if you were great at figuring out how to scrape together enough money to buy some drugs at 3 a.m. and still make rent on Tuesday, awesome. You showed creativity, you showed determination and fortitude. We can use that creativity, determination, and fortitude towards instead not buying drugs at 3 a.m. And instead, how could you save up for a vacation to go on a family hiatus with everybody, or just a little weekend getaway with your partner? We can take that resourcefulness, that curiosity, that determination, that resiliency, and we can just repurpose it over to a more beneficial outcome. Although I'm sure at 3 a.m. when you were buying those drugs, you thought it was a great outcome that you were getting yourself to. I'm sure when you looked at your bank account the next day and came off that high, that you were very, very much not thrilled that you now had to figure out a way to come up with rent in 2 days. Certainly, we learned a lot back then. Let's repurpose those skills. And that's what we're doing in our sobriety. That's what we're doing in our addiction recovery is we're seeking to repurpose all the things that we've done in our life towards a more beneficial outcome. Because we have a tremendous amount of habits that we've created, and a lot of them were probably leading us toward our addiction or our DOC, our drug of choice. What if we just repurposed all of those habits to lead us away from our drug of choice, to lead us towards something that was fulfilling? I talk about on the show a lot, and for those of you who've been listening for a while, and I know there's an episode about this somewhere, but I don't have that one in front of me. I talk about how a lot of us want to find purpose in our sobriety and recovery, and I'm a huge proponent for purpose. But we try to start at purpose and work our way back, find something that we think's purposeful, and then seek to get passionate about it by having it continue to interest us and spark our curiosities. But instead, we want to flip that around and we want to get curious about things. And that curiosity will lead us to being more and more interested in it. And the more we become interested in something, the more passionate we get about learning more and applying it into our own lives. And the more that we learn and the more we apply and we put that on a feedback loop, the more and more passionate we get about it. And once our internal passion, let's just say cup, gets so full, it has no choice but to explode outward. And that's where the purpose comes from. Passion is an internal thing. I know a lot of people who are very passionate about baking, but they don't want to start a baking business. They just want to do it in their own homes and let everybody enjoy the cookies and the cakes that they make. My own girlfriend loves to bake, but doesn't want to start a baking business. She's passionate about baking, but she doesn't want to start paying bills with it. Other people get really passionate about baking, and then they're like, I want everybody to enjoy the deliciousness I create. And now that becomes their purpose, to start a business selling their delicious baked goods. No two people, whether it be my girlfriend or this hypothetical person I just came up with, none of them are right or wrong in their decision to continue baking at home just for themselves and their loved ones to enjoy, or going out and building a brick and mortar store or doing mail order with it. It's all allowable. It's beyond allowable. It's beautiful that they've chosen how to express that passion within themselves. If you're looking for passion to turn you into purpose, then start at curiosity. More than likely, she got very curious about baking as a kid, got really interested in it, started experimenting with it, got better and better at it. The more and more she did it, it became a passion to make people cakes for their birthdays and other special occasions. And that's where she was content stopping at it. Other people got curious about baking, got super interested, kept doing it and doing it, doing it until it became such a passion of theirs that it needed to explode outward. So, again, passion is for your own internal enjoyment. Purpose is whenever that passion becomes so much that you have to share it with the rest of the world. That's how this podcast came about. I started learning neuro linguistic programming to help myself, and sharing it with it in meetings at Dharma and AA and at Kaiser. I started sharing this stuff and people got really into it. And I just got so into it that after 2 years of learning neuro-linguistic programming and being in sobriety and recovery, I thought, okay, other people need to know this passion of mine to help me understand my brain and to me understand my life and to reframe and to seek a growth mindset and talk to myself positively and release automatic negative thoughts and all this stuff that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis that's starting to feel really automatic for me. For other people, it's not. So what if I could find a way to talk to them directly and help them start to rewire and reframe their own lives? That would be spectacular. Enter in the From Sobriety to Recovery podcast. My passion internally became so much that it became my purpose. And it's not just helping people in sobriety and recovery. It's also really important to me to find people who may not necessarily have an addiction issue. They might be take it or leave it drinkers. Sure, that's an aspect of their life, but they might be finding some level of unfulfillment in their career, in their self, in their relationships. And then that's where the counseling, that's where the workshop facilitation, that's where going into businesses and teaching them better ways of communicating with one another and conflict resolution, and how to understand fact from fiction and all this other really cool stuff that I teach. It all got started a long, long, long time ago when I was sitting at a lunch with a friend and talking about how I wanted to know more about my mind, and I knew that if I just put my nose to the grind, that I could achieve anything I wanted. I just needed to know where to aim myself, where to point this energy. And they simply said, you sound like somebody who's interested in neurolinguistic programming. You should check that out. And through a lot of different steps, I began to figure it out and I began to apply it. And the application increased my life fulfillment. And ultimately, I've seen it increase thousands of people's life fulfillment because I know they've written me emails and they've sent me social media messages, or they've joined the tribe, or they've become clients. And that's that is the best summation I have for sobriety, is just the beginning, is that there's so many steps ahead of you. And I'm so excited that you are listening to the show, that you're watching these episodes on YouTube, or that you're still listening on the auditory mediums that you've always been listening to. You can begin exploring for your purpose. You can begin exploring for healthier habits to seek to continuously grow. Find the things that you're curious about. Allow those curiosities to spark deeper and deeper interests, and begin to take action and do those things. And the more you do them, the more passionate you become about them. And somewhere in there is your purpose. Many people go their entire lives without fully understanding what their purpose is. They think they know what it is to raise children, or to be the best volunteer in the neighborhood. But those things can be fleeting once the kids grow up, or once the volunteer organization shuts down. What might really be in that person's purposeful interest is realizing that it might be mentoring people and teaching people things, or being able to give back so that they can feel a level of fulfillment. That might be their purpose, giving back to feel fulfillment. I don't know. It's infinite. It's amazing. That's the part of the human mind and the human experience so many of us discount, is that we think it has to be this one way or there, these 20 different ways. But just like you can call someone a dry drunk because you don't think they're going to enough meetings, you don't know what else they're doing. Heck, they may be doing an amazing amount of work not going to meetings and doing it their own way. There's an infinite ways to sobriety and recovery, just like there's an infinite amount of ways we can live our lives and find enjoyment and fulfillment and positivity and accomplishment. And trying to tell you that my way is the only way is a real dick move. And I got better things to do than just be rude to you for the sake of being rude to you. I encourage you all to find a way. Be mindful not to just keep doing the same thing that's always worked for you, because that might be taking you down the same path you've already told me you're sick and tired of going down. But certainly understand that within you is the resources, is the resourcefulness, is that resiliency. And if I can be a part of guiding you towards opening up a door, a box, an emotion, a thought that has been locked away inside of you that becomes part of the puzzle that you put together to create an amazing life outside of active addiction, I am blessed to be able to be that person in your life. Okay, my friends, I think I've said enough. If you want to know more, jessemogul.com/ask me. You can click on the coaching button. You can click on the NLP button. You can send in a form and I'll get a hold of it. We'll set up a time. I'd love to talk to you. Seriously, it's a free consultation. It's just a meeting. In 30, 45 minutes, we'll learn more about each other. Maybe there's something I'm doing over here that would super benefit you. Maybe there's an aspect of this podcast that you've heard that really helped your life that you'd like to let me know about. You can go to fromsobrietytorecovery@gmail.com and send me a direct email. I'm the only one who reads those things. Sometimes I have an assistant who does, but for the most part, that's just a me thing. And let me know how this show's helping you. And if by all means, leave things in the comments. If you think I'm a dingbat and you want to leave vitriol down there, by all means, just know that it says more about you than it'll ever say about me when you leave vitriol, angry comments. And besides, according to AJR, what is he? I don't. I've got no haters because I'm not famous. It's one of their songs. I love AJR, by the way. And they've got a song. I don't have haters because I'm not famous. Me and TJ, one of my old shooting partners back out in my Hollywood days, best friends still to this day. We like to say that when you get haters, that means that you finally made it. So by all means, leave some vitriol. Then I'll know I've made it. I don't know where I made it to. Maybe just on your radar of people to be ostensibly angry at for no apparent reason at all, other than that I said something that somehow offended you. In a world of infinite possibilities, that's the one you're going to choose. So, my friends, go to jessemogul.com, learn more about what we're doing over here. I'd love to know more about you. If you'd like to reach out, I already told you, jessemogul.com/ask me. I'm literally teaching an NLP class with my amazing co-trainer, Aubrey Pohl. We're both master trainers from the same academy, the Evolution Academy, and we're teaching that at the end of September. So if by some crazy way you got a hold of this on YouTube via the first time ever I've posted something and you heard me say neuro-linguistic programming, come on down. And if you've been listening to my show for 300 episodes on an auditory streaming app, and now finally me saying neuro-linguistic programming seems to have sparked an interest in you, again, jessemogul.com/ask me. Click on that button, fill out that form, and we will get on a call. Maybe Zoom. Wouldn't it be really cool to see each other's faces? Okay, that's enough. I hope that you've enjoyed this. So many more of these to come. As always, my friend, inclusivity over exclusivity, the power of positive energy, release and flow. Every day is the best day of our lives when we wake up sober. Shout out to Sunshine. Shout out to Robert. Glow on. See you next time, my friends. Bye-bye.